Now, I'd like to introduce my friend Jim Howe, who is president of the Friends of Jonathan Dickinson State Park and serves as conservation chair and vice president of Audubon of Martin County. A certified Florida master naturalist, Jim has volunteered thousands of hours in Florida State Park since 2010. He is well known for leading his fact-filled Florida scrub jay walks, which I'm sure a number of you have been on, I know I have, and educating the public about native habitats and fire ecology as he leads tours of both Audubon Everglades and Audubon of Martin County that highlight bird life and restoration efforts in areas like C44 Reservoir and Stormwater Treatment Area. Under his leadership, the Friends Group has spearheaded projects like Chickee Pavilion and efforts to rebuild the Hobbs Mountain Tower. Here is Jim to speak briefly about Audubon of Martin County, the Friends of Jonathan Dickinson State Park, and of course, to let you know about this year's upcoming Fire Fest, an event that is sure to set a fire under your seat. Jim, whenever you're ready.
All right. Hey, Scott, thank you. And like you said, I'm Jim Howe. A lot of you know me from leading the birding tours that I lead for both Audubon Everglades as well as Audubon of Martin County. And I'd like to specifically welcome the folks from Audubon of Martin County. This is the first Audubon Everglades presentation that the two organizations have co-promoted. And I hope that whenever we have a topic that interests both in the future, we can do that and work more closely together. Since we are going to be working closely together, I'll take this moment to plug CBC, our Christmas bird count in Jonathan Dickinson State Park, which we'll do on the 4th of January. Contact me in any manner you choose, and we can get you helping me with the CBC, and you can still help with the one in Palm Beach County. Well, my Audubon work was preceded by my volunteering for state parks, and I was working with scrub jays for many years, and my friend Rob Rossmanith suggested that I become a board member of the Friends of Jonathan Dickinson State Park. And today, years later again, I sit here as the president of the Friends of Jonathan Dickinson State Park, and I'm ready to talk about Fire Fest. It's a we had the flyer up there for a moment, but it is a public demonstration of prescribed burns, and we also have a public festival along with it. It is on a Saturday, October the 18th, and it'll run from 1 in the afternoon until 9 at night. There'll be, excuse me, a whole bunch of stuff besides just the fire displays. We're going to have rides on swamp buggies. We're going to have craft vendors. We're going to have exhibitors booths. We're going to have kids stuff like decorating pumpkins and some s'mores, and grown-up stuff like there's bands going to play, and there's a beer garden, and there's just a ton of things to do at Fire Fest. It's a lot of fun, and but the main, I think the main draw is why we named it Fire Fest. It's the prescribed burns are an important part of managing our Florida wild areas. And so we put this on to show folks what we do in we have a afternoon, daytime fire that's put on, and then one after dark, which is quite impressive. And so if anybody hasn't stood right next to a forest fire, you might want to come out and visit us on the 18th and watch as my friends in the fire team say, Rob Rossmanith, the guy who's very important in our park. And so please, we're looking forward to everybody coming out, but for Fire Fest. And before I give it back to Scott, I wouldn't be a very good president of a nonprofit if I didn't have an ask. And that is, I'm talking to a lot of people who helped us in summer of 2024 to beat back the concept, golf in parks fiasco, I'm calling it. And laws have since been passed that they're not going to do that again. However, excuse me, we only got $10 million this year for maintenance in all of our 176 state parks. That's, if you just divided it, that's 88 grand a piece. We have 11,000 acres in our park. Our CSO raises money to spend in Jonathan Dickinson State Park. We're going to be raising money for Kitchen Creek Overlook and Hope Mountain Tower soon. So I'd like to ask everybody to join the Friends and become somebody who's making a difference in the future. Also, I think I skipped to join both Audubon chapters. If you are a member of Martin County, join Audubon Everglades and vice versa. Both of those organizations have unique events. But please join the Friends and make a difference. You know, Jane Goodall just passed and said, we make a difference every day. You can't help making an impact. Decide what you want to do. And I say, come help. We appreciate it. Thank you so much, Scott. And I'm looking forward to Rob's presentation. Scott?
Thank you, Jim. Park and Audubon of Martin County. Just want to reiterate that. To introduce tonight's feature presenter and facilitate the Q&A afterwards is wildlife biologist, senior environmental analyst at South Florida Water Management District, and Audubon Everglades wonderful vice president since 2020, Natasha Warich, who often joins these presentations dirty and hungry after a long day of field work on district land, although today she got home a little early, and she is not dirty and hungry, I don't think. Natasha, take it away.
I am hungry, but not dirty. All right. Thanks for everybody for being here. So as we all know, tonight we're going to be hearing from the fantastic Rob Rossmanith, the park biologist for Jonathan Dickinson State Park and Atlantic Ridge Preserve State Park, the underrated, but shouldn't be, sister of Jonathan Dickinson. He's worked at these parks for 22 years, which is incredible. And before moving to Florida, Rob graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in wildlife science and from Southern Illinois University with a master's degree in zoology. In his spare time, Rob enjoys exploring the outdoors with his wife and his daughters. And, he is an amazing person. This is going to be a great presentation, everybody. So please remember to keep your microphones muted, keep your videos off, and please put all of your questions in the chat. Thank you. Take it away, Rob.
Thanks, Natasha. Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. Just let me know, Natasha, Scott, Jim, if
I can see your screen.
Something's not working. Yeah. You can see the slide?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. Okay, so this is our Pine Flatwoods ecosystem where you're gonna find this is after a prescribed burn. And you might hear that sound, which is red-cockaded woodpeckers. So you might hear that at JD now. So Natasha, did you guys hear that?
It worked perfect.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So I want to talk about the reintroduction that we've been doing over the past 5 years. Really, this project and Natasha helped. She used to work at the park 15 years ago. We had this idea that we wanted to bring the birds back, and I want to share with y'all kind of my past 5 years in the Pine Flatwoods and with the red-cockaded woodpeckers. I am also going to just touch on Florida scrub jays. I know, we've been in this meeting for a little while now. I've seen a bunch of pictures of them, so I can't not talk about them. And we do have a resident expert in the group, Hannah Miller. So all questions will go to her about scrub jays. Okay, so first off, this has been just a fun project. I've been able, like I said, to learn many things, and mainly I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but right here, this is Monica Folk on the right lower part of the screen. She kind of runs the Red-Cockaded Woodpecker banding. She's permitted to do all the work, and I kind of follow her around, and I've learned a ton from her. And with all these projects, whatever agency, there's going to be a ton of people working together. This is the Camp Blanding group mainly, but also Osceola National Forest folks, FWC, Park Service, lots of RCW experts, at least 4 that I see here, and then kind of folks like me who know a few things about them. So just being involved with this is super fun. It's been super gratifying. Kind of middle of my career, kind of learn a new skill, and really providing, bringing the birds back to where they should be. It looks like some went a little wrong on this slide, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. But this is an outline of the talk. That I'll come back to this slide. It'll look a little different at the end. But if you can kind of just focus on these are kind of some of the main points. RCWs disappeared in our flatwoods in 1983. Historic logging from before the park was a park. Lack of fire, lack of direct management of the birds. And we're going to talk about what all that means. The birds are now federally threatened. They were federally endangered in 2020 when we brought the birds here. But because of this technique, which in the picture, there's a box. You can't really see the box, but I have one. I don't know if y'all can see that, but I can't see myself on the screen. But this insert in the tree, that technique has brought these birds back from federally endangered to threatened. And we brought the birds from Osceola National Forest. And then this previous picture of this team, this is the Camp Blanding group from 2023. So 2 years ago was that picture. The last time we brought birds from the outside. So just quickly talking about the birds, the kind of the number one thing, is pine flatwoods is the trees, right? So South Florida slash pine is what they will naturally excavate here in South Florida. Other places it might be different species, but same concept. It's a live tree, and they will peck these resin wells around the tree that flow resin. So it's like sort of sticky. It's also flammable, which we'll talk about in a second. But you can see, so this is like one, and that's another one. But then this is maybe 4 resin wells together that this bird has been working. And that stops the snake. Mainly, it's the snake that's the predator, usually down here. Red rat snakes, further north, gray rat snakes. They will eat the eggs, eat the chicks. And so this is, if this were a dead tree, they couldn't do this. The other part of the picture that I want to talk about is the bird itself. We're going to see the other woodpeckers in the area. They look different, but for this picture, we'll just focus on this big white cheek patch here that is different, especially from the downy and the hairy, which look most similar to this woodpecker. It does have this mustache, and it's got this black eye line and then cap. We'll see some different pictures of the birds and really show you that. But the main thing that you're going to the first sense usually is your ear. You're going to hear these birds. they're going to fly through the woods. They've got this call, this distinctive call. And that is typically what we'll key in on, right? You know, so we're out in the woods trying to figure out, you know, with these leg bands, is it Susie? Is it Tommy? Who is in this cluster this year? Or, you know, has it changed? Is it the same as last year? But the first thing we typically cue in on is that vocalization. And then the birds, you know, maybe kind of fly by, come to you if you're near the cluster. But I'm going to give you also some tips and tricks of things to do and not do around RCWs. So number one thing is just listen for the birds. You know, which might be different than, you know, wading birds. I think in South Florida, we look a lot at wading birds, but the song is what you're cueing in on. They're pretty small. Oh, and then the other thing I did want to say here as well is they do, again, they're in groups. There might be two, there might be 3, 4, 5. They are cooperative breeders like scrub jays, like brown-headed nuthatches. So they'll have mama, papa. They might have a young from last year help them raise this year's brood. So a lot of times you'll hear them interact. Sometimes they are solitary, and we'll show you that too. So here in South Florida, they're in our pine flatwoods. Like we talked about, it's got to be South Florida slash. A little further to the north, we do have longleaf in Indian River County, and then north. But these are the hurricane pines. They have a very dense core, you know, to survive South Florida's hurricanes. So this is up at Trapper Nelson's, up in a tree, and you can see the understory is a mix of saw palmetto, and then mainly what you see is wiregrass, different grasses, and herbaceous vegetation. There's actually a ton of diversity in this herbaceous vegetation. There's other stuff there as well. But what keeps that diversity going, kind of keeping the saw palmetto from taking over everything, is this periodic fire in the spring, you know, going into summer. That's the end of our dry season, and going into the wet season in May and June. We get lightning strikes. Sometimes you get rain with the lightning strikes. Sometimes you don't. We get lots of lightning strikes in Florida. We're the capital of the United States. And we get these periodic fires. So in pine flatwoods, it might be as often as a year if it's really dry, like it was this summer, all summer long. This stuff can burn every year. More often every couple of years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. But when you do that, you have low and slow fire. You know, these flame lengths here are 3 to 6 feet. You can see the trees don't have any limbs near the ground. They are fire pruned because the fire is kind of low and slow. The trees don't die. They grow away from the fire. And then once they reach, you know, maybe 40, 50, 60 feet, they start branching out at the top. So that is how that works. You will see too, though, that within the cluster or within the trees, that because of the resin, the tree is actually then flammable and all the way around where the cavity is. So we kind of have to manage that carefully. The higher the nest box is, the better, the further away it is from the fire. But naturally, you know, some of these clusters or trees would burn. But we try to avoid that. It's not always possible. And then also note that in the springtime is when the fires happen, which is also when the birds breed. So setting these prescribed fires, timing it so we're not interfering with nesting is also super key, just to add complexity to our fire program. And we replace and mimic wildfire with prescribed burns. We want to put the smoke and the flames going in the right direction away from homes and roads. So red-cockaded woodpeckers, RCWs, they range from Virginia down to Florida. We get some really good timber in South Carolina. Some of these places much more dense. We're actually in a savanna ecosystem, pine flatwoods in South Florida. It's more forested there. Out to Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas. And then, this map is just from Wikipedia. It has them in Kentucky. That population disappeared. There might be some other fringe birds in different places. But southeastern coastal plain is where the birds are. And a lot of this is developed. And I'm going to show you a different picture to kind of give you a different flavor of that in just a second. But this is a male RCW. You can see his cockade right there, the flare, the red flare. So this is a really good picture. A little close up of the head, the big white cheek patch. You can see there's just a barely little bit of a black streak going through the eye, black cap, and then the mustache. And then, usually if you have bands, it's a good indicator that it's a RCW if it's a woodpecker. So some of RCW's friends and enemies here. So all these birds, these other woodpeckers, they will maybe try to take over natural cavities of RCWs. So pileated woody woodpecker is the biggest northern flicker, beautiful bird for sure. Lots and lots of beautiful colors. The most common bird, woodpecker in the flatwoods that I see and really all over the park are red bellies, and they definitely love RCW cavities. They will compete for those cavities and fights. Definitely have seen that. The superpower of the RCW, though, a lot of times when I've seen them fight, one-on-one, red-bellied is bigger. One-on-one, red-bellied probably wins. But if you've got multiple RCWs, that's their superpower. They'll chase them off. So unless it's a solitary bird, RCWs are good to go in that fight. And then red-headed, another beautiful bird. We're kind of at the southernmost edge of the range. And then you're most likely to confuse visually a hairy and a downy with RCW. But you can see here that big white cheek patch for the RCW is very distinctive. Okay. So this is a different range map, and I got this again off the internet, and the legend shows recovered populations, potentially recovered. Don't worry about that. What I'm trying to show here, so we're right here at the C where it says Corbett, but Corbett and Dupuy are now adjacent to the Hungerland Slough and JD groups. So we're all adjacent to each other. I'll have another map of that. I love maps. But we have this, 150,000 acres of land that is adjacent to each other in this northern Palm Beach County, southern Martin County area. That includes grassy waters and other properties. But the 4 properties have RCWs here. We can get a genetic interchange, birds going back and forth. It's a beautiful thing. We've actually seen birds. I lost my mouse there, but we've seen birds from St. Sebastian go all the way to JD. We saw that one time. But the other point of this map is just that even though that first map shows, contiguous range, overall, these properties are pretty far and few between. These are only public properties. There's definitely private properties that also have RCWs. But then we brought birds from Osceola and Camp Landing to JD. And it's a ton of effort for these folks to kind of keep track of their birds and get the right permissions from U.S. Fish and Wildlife to bring them to other places. Apalachicola is another place that's a donor site. So yeah, we feel pretty lucky that we have RCWs on the property. They're back, and it makes sense, right? So they can work with these Corbett and Dupuy populations. In total, the Corbett, Dupuy, and then Hungry Land, JD populations have something like 65 breeding groups, somewhere in there. And we have 10 at JD. And so this kind of goes back to some of the other stuff we talked about. So the birds, also they're social birds. Social means that they do fights. So it looks like these are two females. I don't see a cockade on either one of them. The males will defend their cluster. So these, naturally these nest boxes, it takes a long time to build these. And so it's an important resource for the birds. The females will also fight to be the dominant bird, chase each other away. They kind of move around as well. But they have these social groups, and they do, again, like I said, they're cooperative breeders. So you could have Mama Papa Junior from last year help raise the young. And again, the center of this sort of territorial display is going to be in the cluster. That's kind of where they get after each other. And you definitely see it for sure. And then this is kind of what we were talking about before, kind of the management of these areas, these pine flatwoods. Fire is a big tool. It's not necessarily the only tool. We also have a really noxious weed in our pine flatwoods, downy rose myrtle, which we manage with fire and then chemical. Those two things kind of combine and help us manage downy rose myrtle. They're in other natural areas as well. But here, just a couple things you can see. We raked around this tree. We actually also string trimmed. It's a string trimmer with a metal blade, brush cutter. We brush cut around the tree, get the fuel out of the way. And then this is Miranda that is lighting around these trees. So she'll light a little dot here, a little bit of head fire. Fire goes away from the tree, around the edge, and then on the back side. And this is not an active tree, I'm pretty sure. But this cluster 7 yellow trail, it's we still do all the same things, active or inactive tree. We try to protect these cavities. I think this is a brand new insert. So this cavity had been used, and then something happened, and we did a new insert here. But you can see she lit here, and is working on this tree. And there's a 4th tree over to the right. So this is the cluster. This is cluster 7. So a cluster of these cavities. We put in at least 4, and then the birds have also started their own natural starts, which is super awesome. I got pictures. This activity here is so the theme is climbing trees. It's a fun / scary thing to do. Something that I've enjoyed learning to do. And on the left, what we've done, you can see the aluminum foil. So we know that with this tool right here, there's a peeper we have on a stick. So we will check all our active trees for eggs. So we have this on a pole, this camera on a pole, and then this monitor down by the base of the tree. And at some point we had eggs in here, and then we knew we aged the babies at day 8. We will ban the birds, and that's Monica is really good at all that kind of stuff, making sure she knows the age and when it's appropriate and not appropriate to climb and bring the babies out. And I will have more on that in just a second. The aluminum foil is just a secondary preventative measure for those snakes. Small population, it doesn't cost much effort or time or treasure to put some aluminum foil up. And then on the right, this is probably one of the first trees I climbed and put in this insert, cut a hole in the tree about yay big, and you try not to fall. You can see this this belt here that attaches you to the tree. I've got a belt on, and then a bunch of tools to make sure that the cavity or the insert does not fall out. So we shim it, we putty it, do all the things to make sure that is good for the woodpecker. I don't know if this one has it. Yeah, look, it's even got a drain hole right there. There's a bunch of rain, which we always get rain, right? So on the left is like an okay insert, it's all right. It's one of mine. Probably one of the first ones I did. So same area. This is out by Trappers in the Loxahatchee River, near the Loxahatchee River. And this is not the best picture, but it does show the male in cluster 2, Kitchen Creek Overlook, excavating a tree, a natural start. And this was actually a good ways, 120 yards, something like that, from the inserts, the rest of the cluster. So we've seen quite a bit of that, cluster 2 and other clusters. Again, the unifying theme here is fire in Pine Flatwoods, happens at Corbett, Dupuy, JD, all the ecosystems that have Pine Flatwoods. This one is in the western part of the park. It's just a cool shot. Springtime burn. And what this also does, so, it removes dead vegetation, the non-native plants that we try to manage to get rid of, downy rose myrtle, it kind of knocks it back. That's a good thing. But for the woodpeckers, what it also means is for the woodpeckers and the vegetation. So this picture on the right is 3 to 6 weeks after a burn in cluster 7. Vegetation comes right back. This is toothache grass, just a field of toothache grass. It's super cool. And all that new vegetation attracts insects as well. And then the birds, they will find all the insects in the trees that are coming to this new growth. They do forage in trees and on the trunks of trees. But here, this picture, I think I was chasing 2 fledges in cluster 7. And then I came across this awesome scene of toothache grass forever, 3 to 6 weeks after the burn. How cool is that? And so here, Southeast Florida, Martin County, right on the county line. County line is somewhere here. So it's a little bit older map, but we managed Atlantic Ridge and JD. We got Sea Branch, St. Lucie, Mac Beach, RCW's at Corbett, and now at Hungryland. They did a reintroduction the same year that we reintroduced at JD. And then, we are very close to the city of West Palm, a major urban area. So we tracked, so we're 10,500 acres. We attract a bunch of visitors, 200,000 plus a year. And so just being a good example of how to manage a property, be it with fire or imperiled species management or exotic removal, hydrology, whatever that might be, or good visitor management. We try to be an example. And the friends, Jim and the friends definitely help us with that. So this is the slightly newer map of JD, the updated map, Loxahatchee River right here, Kitchen Creek. So western and central flatwoods, which is where the RCWs are. And then central and eastern is where the scrub and the scrub jays are. And then this picture here on the left is Monica handling a male. See that red-cockaded out at Camp Landing. So this is the transport box. So we're moving the bird from Camp Landing to JD. And that's a heck of an operation. Catch the birds at night and then drive for 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the night and then release them in all kind of places in the park. So super fun, exhausting. So JD, this is the Ocean to Lake. I think this is a Palm Beach County product. So the Ocean to Lake Spur Trail off the Florida Trail, going through Dupuy, Corbett, Lock Slough, no Hungerland Slough, and then through the park. And then we've got City of West Palm right here. So in all, like I said, 150,000 acres. The RCWs unify these properties, the fire, like I said, like all the different types of management that we do. So now the birds can interchange between these properties, which we haven't seen yet, but we might soon. One of the things I started this talk with teamwork. It definitely takes a village to raise RCW population for sure. And there's 2 folks here I want to talk about with habitat foraging analysis. So in order to make sure that the birds have the timber on the property that they need, so timber here, this is an old growth tree, means foraging habitat for the RCWs. We can kind of fit these boxes, not everywhere, but we can find trees for these, but we got to make sure that they have enough food. Otherwise they don't reproduce successfully. So 2 folks, Natasha helped for sure gathering the data, the habitat foraging analysis. Definitely couldn't have done this project without her. And then this is the actual document that we then submit to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Southern Range Translocation Cooperative that, hey, yes, the birds can have enough foraging on this property. And she put her name second, Michelle Wilcox, but she was the real author. And she now works with I think the U.S. Army or the military DOD in South Carolina, but without this document that she ran the numbers for while she was working for U.S. Fish, we wouldn't have had birds. So ultra grateful to work with these folks. It is not a solo effort. Here, I've got 8. So I've got year on x-axis, 1971 to 2021. Acres burned. So you can see in the blue, the dark blue, there are 2 blues, one's super faint, but the darker blue is prescribed fire acres. You can see we do a ton more burning since middle of 2000s, and it's really, really important for the birds. The black line shows that we burn 100% of the property. So you can see only a third of the park was an ecological rotation in 2004, 2005. But we got to burn it all on shorter rotations, and the RCWs and the fire thing kind of jive for sure. So just kind of getting down into the weeds. So this is the cluster distribution. They're numbered. So, this is cluster 1, 2, and so on. Green is a paired breeding group. I meant to change that. That just means a group, two adults. We have 1 solitary. So we have 10 occupied clusters and 6 inactive or recruitment clusters, which we could probably jam in a couple more clusters if we needed to. So 10 occupied clusters after 5 years. And then this is a lot of numbers, but we didn't have any birds, all dashes here in 2020 until 5 years ago. I think it was end of October. We brought 5 pair from Osceola. And then we had 2 active clusters, 2021, 5, 9, and then we've topped out at 10 in 2024. So 2, 5, 9, 10, that's pretty good. Every year we doubled for a couple of years. These are groups, so as opposed to solitary birds, not super important. But I do want to point out, so we started with 1 fledge, went to 3, 8, 10, and 13. When we bring birds from Osceola or Camp Landing, they're young birds. So some of the original birds, they were less than a year old when they started breeding. So they didn't do very well. But as the birds have aged and we've gotten more and more success. If you do the math, so 36 birds is what we brought in, and I think we're at 35 fledges. Not that they're all around, but somehow that math, is a balance in the universe there. So nest monitoring again. So this is with this camera and this monitor. So we have a nest. They will rip strips off the side of the box and the interior. You might find some eggs. And then this was the first bird that was born in the park in 40-something years. Yeah. And then so we do a sex check at age. So when they hatch, it's day 0. At day 20-ish, we go in with the camera and we make sure to see if it's a male or a female. This is a female. If it was a male, you'd have a lot of red right here. So we're pretty sure it's a female. And the bands, and I got a few things to show you there. This is Monica. This is a 10-foot tree. I think it is cluster 10 way down south and west. I'm sorry, that's cluster 4. Not that it matters, but she's got some fishing line, and she goes fishing for babies. You don't even see the baby as she pulls it out in her hand. I don't have the angle for that. But there she goes and puts them in the pouch. And it's just such a great, this is a 10-footer. It's a short tree. You can see all the resin wells here. I just really, like the angle and the light and whatever on this this video, and that the height was right. Okay, so banding the chicks. We've got our banding kit all set up here in the shade for the bird and for the people, because it's June. Here we put all the bands on. You can see big old fat belly. Mama and Papa are doing a good job feeding the chick. Here we're just making sure the aluminum Band is nice and snug. We can't actually hurt the bird here, even though it looks kind of scary. And then this, I'm not sure what cluster this was, but we had two birds there. And here we just take a final picture just to make sure we put the birds on right, or the bands on right, that we didn't reverse them or something like that. So we're not confused later on. We band them before they have feathers, so that when we lift them out, we don't, a feather doesn't get caught and they bleed or something like that. So day 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there is when we band. And they have them for a long time. This is probably my best digiscoping in the middle there of an RCW. Okay, yeah. This so just kind of in summary, and after this I got a couple more slides on scrub jays, and then I'm done. Birds were disappeared from the park in 1983 with a ton of hard work with a team of people, with expert people like Monica. We were able to reintroduce the birds in 2020. Again, lots and lots of help. We have folks that believed in us, including folks from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and we're a small property, but we were given kind of this privilege to get these birds, and I think we're taking good care of them. Like I said, they were downlisted recently to threatened, and they disappeared from the park because of logging, land use changes, so ag, other development, residential development, lack of fire, and we never did active cavity management when we had the birds in the 80s. So that was sort of a newer technique back then, and this works super well. Notice, I mean, there's some things that I skipped over, but you have to space the birds a certain amount as well. You can't just willy-nilly put these clusters in. It's got to be kind of well thought out, and if they're too close, they'll start fighting each other, and it's not good. We also did, this is just a little teaser, a brown-headed nuthatch reintroduction. So these guys are friends. They're in the pine flatwoods as well. They're even smaller. You can see these are banded. Tall Timbers did that. And then the last thing is the scrub jays. So same graph as before, acres burned over years, right? So this is all the acres in the park. You know, maybe in 1986, we burned 2,500 acres. That's more like the average now. And that previous graph that I showed, you know, scrub is super scary sometimes to burn. A lot of what wasn't burned was the scrub. And the red is the numbers on this right y-axis. And in the 2000s, 2006 to 2018, man, we did all this burning, and we kind of had 30 to 60 birds, and it bounced around, and the numbers didn't go up with the scrub jays. But after a decade of burning, the vegetation got tall enough, right? So when you burn right away, it's really no good for the jays. It needs like 5-10 years to recover. Then you burn other areas or the same areas. It just all takes a little while. But the most recent numbers, and Hannah, thank you for providing these, is 140 birds. So we were down in the 30s. Okay, we added 100 birds. We were probably at 10 groups in 2007, and now because of all this hard work burning, we're now at 44 groups. Maybe we can top out at 300, so double this number. I'm not sure. And really the big hope is that they move into Palm Beach County, back into Palm Beach County, and some of the properties that Palm Beach County earned and Martin County and the state parks in the northern part of Martin County. Hopefully all those places will see more jays, and I forgot U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the National Wildlife Refuge. So hopefully they will start. They are spreading. Just it takes a long time. It takes a lot of persistence. Conservation work is really tough, but it's definitely been my pleasure to be a part of it. Yeah, I love it, and I love Jonathan Dickinson State Park for sure. So with that, I will send it back to you, Natasha, for questions.
Thank you, Rob. So I'm not sure if everybody could see you when you were showing your props. Can you re-show one of the boxes?
Oh, yep. Can you see me now? I can't see.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
see.
All right. Sorry about that. So this is the insert. These are cedar boxes. It's basically one piece, except for the top, so two pieces. And then this PVC piece so that red bellies don't make it bigger, or pileated, and also this metal piece so it can't be further excavated. And then we have camera. The camera goes into the cavity and is on a stick. Got lights. And then on the ground, we can see what's in the camera. Or, yeah, it's
like a remote little screen you can see with.
Put it in my pocket or whatever, fanny pack or whatever. Yeah, and like I said, this is on a stick. And there's a new fancy one that's got even better quality. So at some point we'll have to get that. So do I have anything else? I think that's it.
Can you show the drain hole that you were talking about?
Oh, yeah. So right there, they thought of everything for sure. Yep.
Very cool. Okay, we do have some questions in the chat. Everybody, please keep putting your questions in. The first question that we had is from Ann Wiley. She says, RCWs must be quite susceptible to snakes given the precautions that they take, but most birds nest in trees and they have no such precautions like the sap. So are RCWs more susceptible to snakes than other birds? And if so, why?
My guess is no. I would probably guess less. Probably, in part because there's less of them. I would guess that I don't know how the red rat snakes find the nests, but they find them.
Okay. I'm going to put in one of my questions now because I can do that because I'm in charge for the minute. So you talked about the training to be able to band the birds.
Yes.
And then Monica does a lot of the banding and stuff. So I just wanted to ask, like, what kind of permits are needed to band an endangered or a species listed under the Endangered Species Act? And then, like, is there a certain number of birds you have to band? Like, what's the process before you can do it yourself?
Right. So I work under Monica's permit. So I've banded birds, and there's a training. So this guy at Apalachicola National Forest, he's like the guru. It doesn't mean he's the only one, but everybody goes to him, and you go climb a bunch of trees and go fail a lot. And he's very patient with you. No yelling, even when he should. And so that kind of gets you started. So you can then work under somebody's permit. But for the permitting process, there's at least two. So there's a master bander permit that covers, like I know there's somebody at Martin County Audubon. I think they do some banding. I think there's a lady up there that does that. And then there's an endangered species specific permit. So I think species by species, you get that.
Okay.
So, yep.
I was curious. Next question we have in the chat is from Benji Stute. So Benji says,
Hey, Benji.
Benji says, we'd love to hear a little bit more detail on the relocation process, sleepless nights, and the actual process of putting relocated pairs in trees in the early night. Then keeping them there before removing the cover on the artificial cavity right before sunrise. Such a cool process. And then he says, Rob and the team are so dedicated to this work.
Thanks for the question, Benji. Yeah, it is a long process, and the three people, there's three in the pictures. So Sarah Lauerman handles Osceola National Forest, and so she spends all summer in Osceola to get. I think now she only kidnaps 5 pairs. But so she's got to monitor 50 clusters or something, 25 clusters to get unrelated birds, birds that aren't brother and sister or cousins and whatever. So all this homework goes into that. And then Cynthia and Jess at Camp Landing. So they do all this homework. And then we spend the week before. So we get there on a Monday. Monday nights, Tuesday morning, Tuesday nights, all the way until catch night on Thursday night. Thursday nights, so we go scout everything out, make sure that, right, you got mama, papa, you'll have a helper bird, you might have 2, you might have 3 helper birds, and then that 6th bird is the one that you want, whether it's a male or a female. So you have, you're not taking the primary helper or the secondary helper. So you wait. So you have assignments, go to cluster 15, and your job is to catch the female, which is yellow, black, silver, red, blue. And you got to make sure you go to that right cavity and find the right bird. Hopefully catch it. And don't lose it. Then wait for maybe like a second assignment because somebody else might have missed it. Then you go back to a central area, take some measurements, drive for 3.5, 4 hours. So now it's like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. Go climb a tree, stuff the bird in, stuff the bird in. That's angry. Don't let it go either while you're up there. And then we put a cover on there, and then at daybreak, we have string. We pull that cover, and then the birds do a happy dance for the first time ever. They meet each other, and maybe love ensues, maybe, or at least they know that they're in a place where there's other red-cockaded woodpeckers, and then they
hopefully love ensues, right?
Yeah, and then they kind of spread out and find their buddies, and so it's a long night, and then it's raining, and you're tired. Yeah, it's super fun. So you sleep in the truck is the ideal thing, to maximize your 3 hours of sleep. So yeah.
Sounds awesome. Do you take volunteers?
Yes.
So next question from Ann Wiley. So this one we'll answer in the chat for you, Ann. She's interested in the Loxalucy Headwaters Initiative. She wants to know how that's doing and who can she contact regarding donating. If you want to briefly touch on that, and we can try to find a link to put in the chat for you, Ann.
Yeah, there's some interesting things going on. Loxalucy has bought some properties, at least a couple that I know of, and Greg Braun, who I think for a long time worked with Martin County Audubon. He's, as far as I know, kind of the lead for that. Do you want to talk about it, Jim? Or?
Well, I think Greg was here, but I've been also working with Greg and several others on the Loxalucy Headwaters Initiative. We recently did buy a parcel. I say we because I'm in the group, but I didn't kick in the monies to buy this 20-acre parcel right next to JD. I think you were out there with us, and we looked at putting that back into its natural water flow across the surface flow, instead of what's there now, ditches that was put in to drain it
Right.
and invasives. So we've been cleaning those lands up. There's currently 2 properties that are along Bridge Road that have been purchased, and they're being cleaned up of their invasive species. I think you're probably familiar with AVC, the people you go, do you want to get somebody to do this right? They're the guys. And so AVC is with them.
Cool, thanks, Jim. So if you have a link for Anne, if she can get more information, if you want to put that in the chat, that would be wonderful. And then Anne did have a question on RCWs. Do RCWs also create resin wells to attract insects for food, or is it just for snake protection or prevention?
Yeah, it's just predator protection. Yep. But man, they'll sit there on the tree and they're monkeying around up there, and the one cavity, the natural start, with the male, it happened to be the male. I wasn't that far. I was 30, 40 feet, doesn't care at all. So they're very, very focused on what they're doing. But it's they'll peel bark and stuff off of the tree. They do that to forage, but they do that for the nesting tree as well. So they'll forage in that tree, but the primary thing is the nesting, the cavity. Yep.
Okay.
They need lots of trees. One tree is not enough, not even close.
Joyce Eratos says, remarkable. Thank you so much, Rob. Leslie Coolidge and Michelle Daly, I'm going to combine their questions because they're kind of on the same topic. So Leslie asks, how are the bands determined and managed? And then Michelle asks, can you talk about the band colors and if they have meetings on scrub jays? So if you want to talk about RCWs and then the scrub jay, if the colors mean anything, and how do you determine who gets what colors?
So I have it super easy. I just do whatever Monica tells me to do. And I like it. So she comes up with a coloring scheme. So she'll come up with I'd have to look at the picture, but I think it's the right leg is the year. So it'll be, hot pink, silver or something. And then the rest of them are just individualized. And ideally, it's also so it's easy on the eyes in terms of like having 2 horrible colors together that you can't distinguish. And so some of them also have like their split bands. So these are like really small birds with small legs with smaller bands. And then some of the bands have 2 colors. So that's super fun. So yeah, it's tough. You try to think of a good combination, that year combination, pink and silver for the year, hatch year. But there are some tough combinations. And then what was the second part with the scrub jays?
Can you talk about the band colors and meanings on scrub jays? So same type of question, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's similar, that there's one side that's a hatch year, so a cohort, and then there's an individual combination. And so the colors, I mean, really for both aren't necessarily unique. What's unique is the silver tag. It does have a number. So, Archbold in theory could have a scrub jay with the same color combination. Now, Hannah, she does the work at JD. She might have it organized where they're not going to have the same combinations. I'm not sure. But one thing that's a big takeaway is scrub jays are way easier to see than RCWs. And RCWs are, especially for the bands, it is not a binocular activity. It is a scoping activity for banding. And I did want to say just a couple things. Just if you go out in the park, you do see a tree with aluminum foil, just stay way away from it. We do put out signs, but just give them wide berth. It might be feeding the chicks, and if you just sit there forever, they're going to miss too many meals. So just kind of give them lots of space. In the non-breeding season, you won't see aluminum foil. Ideally, when they're going back into the cavity, don't disturb them. Don't knock on the tree. Give them their space. But especially during breeding season.
When is breeding season?
So April to July.
Okay.
Yep.
And then one thing to mention about that silver band you mentioned on all birds, it has a unique combination, like letter number combination. It's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service band, so all banded birds get one of those silver bands, and they're always a unique. So ultimately, that can be how you ID the bird, right? I think you mentioned that, but yeah.
Yeah, and so there's bands that fall off, after a while. I mean, they definitely pick at them. I mean, you're putting them on when they're babies. They can't even pick at them. I think the pictures did show it, but I didn't mention it. But they don't. Their eyes aren't open. Ideally, sometimes they are. If you wait too long, but yeah, bands fall off, or you have some bird that appears from St. Sebastian, and you're like, what is this bird? What is happening here? And sometimes those combinations are hard to ID, the split bands and stuff like that. And we do, we'll talk with Sammy at St. Sebastian. She keeps great records. But yeah, you might have to have that bird in hand, and the distinctive feature is that stamp. So, yep.
Thank you. So Benji says RCWs are unlike any other woodpecker I've ever seen. Can you let people know how fun it is to see every morning, or see them every morning or evening coming into the cluster to roost, and how social they are? It's so cool to see them talk about their day before going to bed.
Yeah, it's it's pretty magical, right? I mean, when you release the birds, these two birds that never met each other, they kind of do the happy dance. You can kind of set your watch to the birds coming in to the cluster, and again, give them space, right? Make sure you come prepared. Get your extra zoom lens, stay away, let them get into their cavity. But it is so satisfying as you swat the mosquitoes off your face, that you had a part in bringing them back, and that all the things that we do, the fire, the exotic removal, the hydrology, that we just put them where they belong. They're meant to be here. So that is super magical. And then, even more so, like when you have the opportunity, to climb, to band and all that stuff, it's even more awesome. And it's crazy, though. It's like places like Apalachicola and Osceola, how amazing those places are if you've never been there. I mean, we got a few birds here and there, whatever, and Corbett does, and Dupuy, they got more than we do. But these are huge places, and Joel at Apalachicola, and Sarah at Osceola, there's so many of them. So that is also super cool to see in other and other parts of the Southeast, but just talking about Florida.
No, that's awesome. And, you mentioned a little bit about it, but, I worked with Rob. Thanks for showing that picture of me back in the day, ye olden days. But, you dedicate yourself to this and the whole team does, and it comes through, which is amazing. So thank you for doing what you do. So Scott wants to know, have you noticed any population changes, particularly northward movement of the population to RCWs as a result of climate change? And what do you think the future holds for the Jonathan Dickinson population?
Yeah, I mean, so there's lots of things, so the big population, I think still, but, back in the day, like 30 years ago, was Francis Marion in South Carolina. I've never been there, but they got hit by Hurricane Hugo, like real bad. And I don't remember if it was a 3 or, what the category was, but hurricanes have a big impact, right? You're weakening that tree. They can snap pretty easy. We have hurricane pines here, South Florida slash. They're stronger, less so with longleaf. I think the birds were all the way up to New Jersey. There was some southeastern coastal plain ecosystems there. So they've been further north. It's hard to know whether that's gonna if there's any space for them to go further north, that ecosystem to kind of move. But I will say that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the federal properties, there are some awesome biologists out there that are sticking birds in places where they probably haven't been for 50 years or 100 years. So they will keep moving further north, whether it's biologists or climate change or whatever. But it's still a big effort.
Cool, thank you. Next question is from Jean. What is the best time to observe RCWs?
Man, anytime. You never know. And I go to Eagles View sometimes, and you just sit there and you're talking to somebody, and there comes the RCW flying by. You can pretty much set your watch. They're going to go out of the cavity at sunup. If you're an early riser, if you know where to go, at sundown they come back again. Give them a couple 100 feet. The trees are marked. They're marked for our management, especially during breeding season. Just stay way away. But you can see them anytime, and I highly encourage folks, go for a walk in January, February, maybe into March when it's starting to dry out, still a little cool, and you're avoiding that breeding season. They kind of do concentric circles, so you have the center point is the cluster. They'll come back all day long to the cluster. So you can go for a walk, make sure you know that call. There is no telling when you randomly encounter RCWs, and those are just as fun as when you're trying to ID the band combination of the birds coming into cluster 7 to make sure that it's that same female or that fledge or whatever. So any time is good, and definitely when it's real hot outside and they're April to August, or April to July, I just leave them be.
How long do the birds live? That question is from Mike.
Yeah, so I would say 5 to 10 years. Yep.
There's been some chat about the scrub jay question. Hannah did reply to Michelle's comment on the band meetings. And then, okay, so I think Hannah has that covered for people who aren't watching the chat. Hannah Miller is the scrub jay biologist that Rob mentioned. She's just talking about how all the birds at Jonathan Dickinson do get a blue band, and then the rest of the colors are randomized so that you can tell the individuals apart, and that none of the scrub jays have any sort of individual tracker attached to them, but she can do a population census roughly every month to see if the birds are still where they were previously or if they've moved. And then they monitor nests during breeding season, which allows her to track and track family groups as well as band nestlings and track their survival. So thank you, Hannah, for answering in the chat.
Yeah, Hannah is an awesome resource to have in the park. She works for Michigan State, and sorry, the name is escaping me, but Fitzpatrick, Sarah Fitzpatrick at Michigan State, and they're, she's a bird person. Her family are bird people, and Audubon and all Cornell and all the rest of it. It's a great resource. Hannah is a great resource to have locally. Banding birds, JD, Savannahs, who knows where else she goes. It's not like the old days, Natasha, when it was me, you, and Jim chasing birds around. There's way too many of them now anyways, and probably way too many for Hannah. But they're doing genetic work, and then, very deep dives into other things that they measure. So it's super awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah.
But I mean, too many scrub jays is a good problem to have.
Yeah. And hopefully they will continue to expand in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Yep.
Fingers crossed. Leslie says, very cool. Thank you. James says, look for the bark that has been pulled off the pines when you're looking for scrub RCW trees. Benji says, you don't need to be too close to the cluster. Just bring binocs and listen for them in the late afternoon or evenings in the pine flatwoods. Nancy says, such an interesting presentation. Thank you. That's all the questions and comments that we've had in the chat. Hannah says, thanks for the shout out, Rob. It's a privilege to work with such a dedicated biologist and land manager like you. I'm going to second that. I learned a lot from you. I am the biologist I am today in part because I learned a lot from you. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Michelle says, Hannah, I took a picture of a scrub jay on a tree in the road back to the boats last Friday afternoon. Not on the scrub jay trail, I believe, that the scrub did not have a bright blue band, but a dark black band. Is that possible? Hannah, if you want to unmute, you can answer real quick.
Yeah, sure. That is possible. We do have a couple birds that have been translocated into our population. And so they don't match our standard banding convention because they were banded elsewhere. And so several, but not all of those translocated birds do have black bands instead. So it is possible that there was a scrub jay with a black band, for sure.
And then, the light plays tricks on everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it gets, scrub jays may be a little bit easier, but it gets rough, and I can't think of a terrible band combination, but they're out there. And then, the bands fade too, and so yeah, it gets fun.
Angelique says, thank you. This was an amazing presentation. Amy.
Yeah. And so Angelique is a new AmeriCorps for us. And today was her first day. And so welcome aboard, Angelique. Yeah.
Amy said, thanks. This was interesting. Benji says, all hail the Fire King. Thanks for your work, Rob. get out to Firefest and learn from this wild Florida champion. I'm gonna make you a patch. Fire King. But yeah, that's everything. Thank you so much for your time, Rob. This was a very interesting and informative presentation. If you guys have any questions for Rob that you think of later, you can either email us at Audubon and we can get you in touch, or you can go to the park, see him in person. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Scott.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, Rob. That was a great presentation. I really enjoyed the video and images of the young chicks in the nest where you gathered them out and banded them. That's amazing seeing those sized chicks being taken out and banded. Just fascinating. Thank you so much for presenting tonight, and good luck at Firefest.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Scott. Appreciate it.
Oh, of course. It was a great presentation. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. It takes a great team to help bring these virtual presentations. So thanks to all of them. And we can't wait to see you on November 11th, 2025. Remember, that's the second Tuesday because of some local elections, when we will be hosting Martin O'Gill presenting on birds and energy, life lessons on life from the avian world. Good night. And enjoy the rest of the evening. And of course, fall bird migration, which is getting into full swing. So have a great evening, everybody. Enjoy the birds. Take care. Bye-bye.